Hello, welcome. You are listening to Dr. Sushma Singh. Today in Unit 31, Peasants Movements, let us start our lecture with topic Peasants and the Revolutionary Movements. Social isolation, cultural segregation and economic exploitation have accentuated the historical processes of marginalization and political subordination of the peasants. The collective realizations and awareness of the peasants on these issues have resulted into the outbreak of various historical peasant movements in the world. Wolff highlighted several historical revolutions and political upheavals, fought with the peasant support that have shaken the world of 20th century. To him, peasants participated in the Great Revision because of the suffering caused by the demographic crisis, ecological crisis, and crisis in power and authority. As the poor peasants depend on landlord for their livelihood, they are unlikely to pursue the course of rebellion unless they are able to rely on some external power to challenge the power which constrains them. To him, there are two components of peasantry which possess sufficient internal leverage to enter into the sustained rebellion. Landowning middle peasantry, a peasantry located in the peripheral area outside the domain of landlord control. He also points out that the peasant rebellions of the 20th century are no longer simple response to local problems, if indeed they ever were. They are but parochial reactions to major social dislocations set in motion by overwhelming societal change. What have been the nature of political identity and action of the peasantry in the peasant movement? Shanin points out that in history and peasantry many times has acted politically as a class-like social entity. Their common interests have driven the peasants into political conflict with large capitalist landowners, with various groups of town men, and with the modern state. To him, in the modern society, its character as a social entity determines the patterns of peasants' political action and influence. He identified three main types of these actions. Independent class action, as formulated in the Marxian class analysis. Guided political action, in which the peasantry is moved by an external uniting power elite. And the fully autonomous amorphous political action in the form of local riots and passive resistance of the peasant. To Shanin, army and the guerrilla action plays a crucial role in the political life of the peasants. These actions represent the peasantry as class for itself. Such actions, according to him, enhance the potential of the peasant to act politically and to think nationally. The professional rebels nationwide ideological and organization cohesion, their stability and zeal, and their ability to work out a long-term strategy may enable them to unite the peasantry, sometimes transforming its revolt into a successful revolution. Alvey highlights the crucial roles played by the middle peasantry in the revolutions of Russia and China. To him, it is the middle peasantry and not the small peasantry who gave the major stimulation to peasant rebellion. Barrington Moray recognized the revolutionary role of the peasantry in the radical movements, but points out that such roles are dependent on the structure of power and the class alignments in the society. Turning to India, he mentions that because of the passive character of the Indian peasantry and the specific structural features of the Indian society, which are dominated by caste, religion, and the ethnic considerations, peasantry has not been able to play any revolutionary role. In India, peasants, however, have played revolutionary roles in the independent movement. The recent study of Mukherjee highlights the significant roles played by the peasantry in the non-violent movement in India. However, within the limited scope of this unit, we shall only focus on the few of the peasant movements in India. Now let us move to the next point, radical peasant movements in India. To highlight the diversified facet of the peasant movements, we shall discuss some aspects of the peasant movements in India. Since India has been the hotbed of several peasant movements, however, are not episodic. These undergo a process of the transformation along with the broad social, economic, and political transformation of the society. Many of these peasant movements have retained their continuity with the past by maintaining legacy of the celebrated peasant movement in one way or the other. However, the contemporary peasant movements have undergone substantial changes in the ideological orientation, leadership, organization, and significantly in the forms of collective mobilization and the tactical line of action. All these have affected the process of grassroots mobilization, process of new identity formation, and transformation of radical peasant movements into an institutionalized one. Peasant movements, however, are not discretely radical or reformative. Rather, one may be an extension of another through transition over a period of time. The process of transformation of the peasant movement from the radical to reformative directly affect the process of new collective identity formation of peasantry. Is the process of new identity formation of the peasantry autonomous of the issues, aims, and ideology of a given social movement? Do they acquire autonomous identity in the process of transformation of the movement from radicalization to institutionalization? The process of transformation of the peasant has affected not only the form and extent of their participation in these movements but also the very essence of their collective identity formation. The nature of the autonomy of these mobilization and the new identity formed therein. However, the direction of the transformation of the peasant movement and their consequent implication for the peasantry has not been the same across the country because of the diverse patterns of economic development and social and political formation in the peasant societies. Since the middle of the last century, the peasant societies of India experienced three significant peasant movements. The poor peasantry of undivided Bengal revolted for Tibhaga, two-thirds of the share of the produce from land, 1946 to 47. The peasantry of Telangana region of Andhra Pradesh revolted against the landlords, moneylenders and the state for abolition of forced labor, forced collection of a high rate of interest, and for their indignity in the society in 1948 to 52. And the peasantry of Naxalbari of West Bengal revolted against the local landlords, moneylenders and the state in 1967 to 71. Though the Tibhaga, Telangana and the Naxalite movement took place in different geographical places and in different periods of time, there are some striking similarities among these movements. Increasing landlessness, poverty, underemployment and various types of social and economic deprivation of the backward classes, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and their exploitation by the upper caste land owners and money lenders were the major issues involved in this movement. All these movements were organized under the auspices of the organization and leadership of the communists. All these movements were ideologically radical in nature. These movements challenged the normative and the pre-existing institutional arrangements of the society. Uninstitutionalized collective mobilization and action were sponsored in these movements. These movements were immediately directed against the traditional landlords, police administration and other apparatus of the state. These movements looked for a radical change in the pre-existing agrarian arrangements of the society. Though the leadership of these movements came mostly from the urban intellectuals and the higher caste groups, the poor peasantry, especially from the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, were the main driving forces in these collective mobilization. All these movements experienced the phenomenal participation of women in all phases of progression of the collective mobilization and exploitation of women by the upper caste landowners had become a prominent issue in these movements. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for listening.